Enjoy the show while you still can. Not because we're getting canceled, but because we only have 45 minutes left today. Superlatives time for Week 7. Myles Simmons, you are up.
All right, let's give the Not This Week award to the Baltimore Ravens, who finally didn't blow a double-digit lead, especially late in the fourth quarter. It looked like they were going to for a second there because the Browns were doing some good things. They got a fumble. They then go down the field a little bit, and then they're driving, and then they get a false start on a field goal attempt. They had a pass interference penalty that was called against Amari Cooper on 3rd and 2, and then Cade York comes in and he tries a long field goal and the thing is blocked. And Cade York said after the game, if that thing doesn't get deflected, then it was going through the uprights. And maybe he was gonna, do the whole Justin Tucker thing in Justin Tucker's house, but it didn't happen. The Ravens were able to finish. They needed to finish. That's something that they've had a lot of problems with over the course of this year. So it's good to see them do that. I still think that they are probably the best team in the division, but I think the Cincinnati Bengals will have something to say about that too.
Although the Ravens did beat the Bengals when they played earlier this year in Baltimore, but they have a rematch coming in Cincinnati. And those divisional games become critical to the final assessment of tiebreakers and whatnot if the Ravens and the Bengals would be knotted up. Well, here we are 75 minutes into the program, and I must share an email that I received earlier in the show. Headline, Why Do You Hate the Dolphins? Normally, you spend the first 30 to 40 minutes of a Monday show talking about Sunday Night Football until today. You spend 40 minutes talking about a quarterback that didn't have enough sense to retire on top and is starting to fail before our eyes. Let me guess, if you were smart enough to pick the right team last night, you would have spent the first 40 minutes talking about Miami. Well, I can guarantee you many things, Kevin. One is whether or not we would have talked about the Dolphins to start the show had nothing to do with me picking the Steelers. I was almost vindicated. I feel good about my pick of the Steelers, even though it didn't work out my way. And I say all that because now's the time. There it is. Now's the time to talk about Sunday Night Football. And the award that I'm handing out is to the Steelers secondary, the That's Why They Play Defense award. And Mike Tomlin said it himself. It came down to catching interceptions. The Dolphins did, and the Steelers didn't. You've got to be able to secure the ball when it hits you in the hands with those gloves on. It's like the old dartboard that was felt, and you had the little ball that had Velcro on it, and you just threw that little ball, and it would hit that dartboard and stick. That's what those gloves do. You almost have to try to drop it when the ball hits those gloves. We saw it several weeks ago against the Patriots when the Steelers had them on the ropes. Cameron Sutton, just like last night, ball in his hands, and he drops it. You have to make that catch, even if you play defense. And I know you play defense in part because you can't consistently catch, but you still have to work on that skill because games can hinge on whether or not that defensive player, Myles, catches the ball.
Absolutely. I mean, and that was just 4 passes that we showed from Tua Tagovailoa from last night where he could have been intercepted. There were at least a couple more, so the Steelers, I really thought they were going to get it done in the end, but it just, I guess it's Kenny Pickett's youth and inexperience. And, you think you can make a throw that you really can't make. So that's unfortunate, but I think the Steelers.
When you could run for a first down and get out of bounds and not even throw the ball.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the youth, the inexperience. He'll learn, and then we'll see what he can do. But I mean, I would feel pretty good, or at least a little bit better about the Steelers today than I did yesterday if I'm a Steelers fan. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, they just got to win some games. They got to win some games.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
they're
exactly.
fading behind the Ravens and the Bengals. There's separation now in that division. Ravens and Bengals win. Steelers and Browns lose. Steelers got to wake up and win some games. They got the Eagles coming to town before they go into their bye. They've got 2 wins. They're looking at 2-6 going into their bye week. That makes for a very tough road on the back end.
Sure does. It sure does. All right, let me go to my second one, which is the How Is This Possible award, and that is for the Los Angeles Chargers. And we talked earlier in the show about yards per attempt and how they can kind of tell you a story about an offense. Look at this. Justin Herbert's last 2 games, He is averaging 4.9 yards per attempt. This is somebody who has some of the best pure arm talent in football. How is it possible that they are averaging only 4.9 yards per attempt for Justin Herbert over the last 2 games? There is something fundamentally broken within the Chargers offense if that is the case. And I understand that teams are going to play too high safeties, they're going to try to take away the deep stuff, whatever, but you've got to get some more chunk yardage in there. All right, Justin Herbert is far too talented for this to be the case with the offense. Joe Lombardi, their offensive coordinator, has got to come up with a better counterpunch, because right now what the Chargers are putting out there offensively is completely unacceptable for someone who we know has some of the most arm talent in the entire sport. All right, so, I apologize to the Seahawks because they deserve a lot of credit and they deserve to be complimented for what they did at SoFi Stadium yesterday. But with all due respect, the Chargers, they got to figure something out because they pee down their leg way too often, and it starts with the offense not being as good as it should be.
The Chargers, the Rosanna-Danas of the National Football League, it's always something for the Los Angeles Chargers. And this year it is the inexplicable failure to use Justin Herbert the way that he's designed it. I had Joe Lombardi as one of my show me somethings for Friday because his grandpa Vince would be saying, what the hell is going on out here? You've got this weapon. You've got this quarterback who was crafted in a lab, and you can't get more out of him. Sean Payton will next year. Assuming that Dean Spanos will pay him, which I think is a point you made yesterday as we were kicking around the possibilities via text message during the games. They're going to have to be ready to dig deep if they want Sean Payton, but maybe he'll give them a Justin Herbert discount for the opportunity to work with him because there's no one else out there. I mean, think about it. You're not going to get the chance to work with Josh Allen. You're not going to get the chance to work with Patrick Mahomes. You're going to get the chance to work with Justin Herbert. There may be some value in that.
Cost of living is high in California. I'm not taking a discount for anything. All right.
I think Sean's doing all right. I think Sean will be okay. Another guy who's doing okay is Joe Burrow, to the point where Norm Van Brocklin is on notice. We take you back to 1951. Yes, it was 1951 when the single game passing yardage record was set. Think about how different the game was then. Think about all the things that they did in the 70s, man, to start goosing the passing game. And it was Norm Van Brocklin with 554 setting the record all those years ago. The record still stands, but Joe Burrow, the guy who may be best suited to break it, he had 525 a couple of years ago. He's got 4th all-time. Yesterday he had 481. At one point it looked like, based on the first half, he was going to get to 554. One of these days, Joe Burrow is going to get to 554. I can feel it in the air. It's just a matter of time. And, you need to be in a game where there's a ton of offense. You're not blowing the other team out to the point where they would yank you in the 4th quarter, and you have reason to keep the pedal to the metal late in the game. So you almost need your defense to fail you to a certain extent to have the cause to keep throwing and throwing and throwing. Remember last year, wasn't it against the Ravens? And weren't they a little pissy about that? Maybe I'm misremembering my storylines from last year. I vaguely remember it was against the Ravens or 2 years ago. I don't know. I got to look it up now. But the bottom line is, Rams quarterback Norm Van Brocklin needs to worry about that single game passing record, although he's no longer with us, so I doubt that he's worried about anything right now. Anyone who cares about the history of the game needs to be getting ready to cross out Van Brocklin and eventually put Joe Burrow at number 1 all-time, Miles.
Yeah, it could be next
Norm Van
week
Brocklin catching a stray.
What? Well, I guess he
Norm
is.
Van Brocklin catching a stray.
Yeah, exactly. But look, I mean, the Bengals play the Browns next week, and with the Browns' crappy defense and that terrible secondary, you are on notice, Norm Van Brocklin. You're on notice, man.
September 28, 1951, the New York Yanks at the Los Angeles Rams, 54-14. So that day, they were just running it up. It wasn't even a close game. They were like, hey, this throwing the football thing is working. Let's keep doing it. Even when they're up by 40 points. All right, speaking of late, we are late. Let's take a break. The 49ers trying to get their revenge over the Chiefs for Super Bowl 54. Even with Christian McCaffrey in hand, it did not happen. We'll discuss that one next on this Monday edition of PFT Live, presented by Google Picks. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.